It's Podquester time now, it is Podquester time.
Hi, friends. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Katie, for joining us for an exit interview.
Thank
back
you,
on Podquester.
We love to be back on Podquester. It's been a minute.
It's been a hot
It has been. Especially considering our lost interviews.
I know. Oh, I'm so sad those were lost. That was so exciting for me because I got to be the very first Podquester interview that day. So I was like, here we go. We're ready for it. But now we get to wrap it all up again.
Yeah. You know what that actually means? That somewhere we actually do have yours because we downloaded yours to make sure that audio was okay. But and then that's what messed us up is that we downloaded one and then didn't download the rest.
You downloaded the best one. It's fine.
So somewhere in the annals archives. It is a word. ANNALS.
Yeah, no, that's definitely.
Please cut that TR. Or put it up.
I was hoping I was going to get the call to do the reenactments when Louis was talking about that. Like I could be Katie. I could be like, guys, I'm Katie Hopkins. Boopity boppity. I'm here. Gonna win this game.
That's pretty much how the interview went.
No ping pong, though. Get those ping pong balls out of here. I don't know if that's going to happen, but maybe.
I manifested it.
Well, Katie, we are so sad to see that it is officially the battle match is over and it is officially done. But we have noticed that you are like, I really thought you were coming back in part because your professionals are still a big part of this show. We love star power.
That's what's true. You know what? I may have only been there for a hot sec, but I feel like I made the most out of my time.
I agree. I think you still have a large percentage of confessionals comparatively to the other players. So I think
especially since we added those battle match confessionals. Now I think that's going to hold me over for a bit more of the season, having a high confessional count.
And I still think about the reversing Josh's decision. I mean, that's still, I think that when you that's definitely early game. That's something that people definitely still think about. That and the marriage of inconvenience.
Marriage of necessity, yes.
Or necessity, yes.
Well, I've seen two people now cite those moments that as the end of their game. Both Brent and Jay West were like, that is what ended my game, was the way I did that vote and that conversation, and Katie did exactly what she was supposed to do and I screwed it up. Both of them go back to that moment.
Well, so, as soon as we were told, like, hey, feel free to change their mind, in my head I was like, cool, I'm changing their mind. It wasn't really an option for me not to. Like, I'm going to fight until my last breath. Like, especially in that first one, I was like, cool, he didn't seem super duper, like, he was set on me, but I figured, okay, if I fight this, maybe I can play on his ego, maybe I can make Josh see something else, maybe I can point out someone else who betrayed him. Whereas in the Natalie situation, when she was voted out, I knew there was no chance in hell these people were gonna let me argue my way out of that twice. Like, that would be so ridiculous if you gave me 2 opportunities to switch everyone's mind about, like, bringing me into the battle match. So once my vote was revealed that round, I kind of knew the writing was on the wall for me, and I was gonna have to go into a battle match. I had the opportunity to do the puzzle in the jury house. I got to play with the puzzle, and I would have smoked anyone at that. I would have absolutely smoked them at that puzzle had I not talked my way out of that battle match. But, you know, hindsight's 2020. I still feel like that move I made was epic in the beginning, even if I necessarily probably shouldn't in the grand scheme of things, talked him out of it, because then I could have won the puzzle, maybe had some power, but that probably would have been dangerous. It would have been a power trip for me.
That's what I was going to ask is, do you think, you know, obviously hindsight 2020, if you wanted to talk yourself out in that first battle match, do you think that would have changed it? Do you think it like almost painted a bigger target on you by being able to reverse that? Or do you think it affected anything?
I mean, I think it definitely, I knew going into that house I was going to have a big target, just because people who have seen me play games know I play aggressively. I play out in front, and I don't like sitting down and sitting back and letting the game exist around me. I want to be in it and making the game happen. So I feel like when I was able to change Josh's mind at the beginning and end up getting Jay West thrown in there, it really highlighted even more like why people were scared of me and why I was a big threat. So it's difficult. I feel like I was always going to be a large threat in that game. And like looking back, clearly I didn't really have many people who had my back, which is fair. But yeah, I don't know. I think my target was going to be big either way. And if I would have come back with some power in my pocket, Brent's game would have ended a lot sooner than it did, which is probably good for the ratings that I didn't come back in.
And for all of you, right? And for all of you, because now
exactly, it's good. I got those extra followers because I didn't get back in the game to tank.
Yeah, you didn't get back in, but you did gave those followers. So
yes.
Oh, definitely a memorable speech for sure. There've been a couple of memorable speeches so far, but there's not a lot that y'all see as jurors, right? Like you only see the ceremony, and then do you see the battle match? You see the battle match as well.
All we see is the elimination ceremony. So when we're sitting on the hay in our masks, that's all we see going on in the rounds. Every once in a while, if things get loud and rowdy enough upstairs, we can kind of hear bits and pieces, but never like enough to actually know what's going on. So that's what's difficult.
Did y'all hear Jacob and Brent yelling at each other in this?
I heard when Jacob and Spencer were yelling at each other during like round 3, I think. I remember hearing them yelling. I don't remember hearing the Jacob yelling with Brent situation. Don't recall hearing that part, but I definitely have heard some yelling, which was cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird because in the jury, all you see is those elimination ceremonies. So it's been fun watching it back because I'm starting to see so much more of everyone else's game, because you only see what happens there at elimination. You see who pops off, you see who gets voted out, you see who gets dragged in. But your thoughts on what's happening in the game really fully rely on as people are voted out and tell you like, hey, this is my perspective on the game. So it's hard because there could be people that were playing excellent games, but we didn't necessarily see it because there was nothing at the elimination ceremony, which makes it hard to gauge how they're playing.
Yeah.
We're on the Twitter, as we know, I've been seeing, you know, we see this, you, Jay West, Muna, you guys really bonded in jury. Is there a moment we haven't seen, from the episode now back? Is there anything that we saw that was like your favorite moment of like the jury house that you think about?
The jury in general was such a place of love. So like when I got in there with Jay West, obviously we were both pretty bummed out about being out of the game. We both felt like, damn, like we felt like there was so much more story to tell. And then Muna came in, and those first 3 rounds, when it was us 3 in there, was probably the longest amount of time that it was like between people coming in. So it was like me and Jay West had a good amount of time to bond, and then we had a good amount of time to bond with Muna before Shireen and Rachel came in as well. So like the 3 of us just got massively close. And I think the thing that really stands out to me is when we were in the jury, it was very much just, let me spill all the tea. We're like, this is who I was aligned with. This is what's going on in there. This is who I think's working together. This is who's playing a great game. And we spilled everything to each other because the 3 of us were like, look, one of us is getting back in this game and we're getting back in this game prepared. So we just let it all out there, like who were the threats, who was lying, like making charts of like, okay, this person is aligned with this. So it kind of felt nice, like knowing Muna was going back in, because Jay West and I had spent, 24 hours explaining to Muna, this is all the information we know from the game that you can add into your knowledge of the game. And like I said, it was just a place of love where you came in and, we all had our moment of being sad because we're like, damn, the game's over for us. But then, just ranting, and we got really into doing impressions of people in their elimination ceremony. We got very into that, like Spencer running around and be like, I'm not here for anyone's coronation. And we would just make fun of everyone's skill of the game, like, mock their blow-ups and, the girl bye, boy bye. Like, it was great. We had so much fun. And living our best life in there.
Did you guys do like reenact almost like plays down like you go to your basement and you do a little play reenactments?
Pretty much. We were like, did you see when they did this? And did you see when they did this? And we would just completely act out what we saw. Because the elimination ceremonies, they are spicy. It is fun. It's like we're sitting there with our popcorn and we're watching because they keep blowing up and it's gonna stay spicy and we love to see it.
I heard that, Jay West did share that your impersonations were pretty much what got him through.
Yeah.
The whole Good. I'm glad that they made an impact on him because I had a blast doing them.
He said you do a very good Jacob, too. Jacob Jones.
Muna! You want to talk about reputation? Muna! He kind of goes, Muna! He bounces when he says it. That was a fun one, too. You want to talk about reputation? So good.
We love to see it. Yeah. So when you went into the games, you did size up the connections and the threat levels, etc. of anybody. Do you feel like, knowing what you know now, there were some things that you missed about relationships?
I didn't. I mean, it's surprising looking back. I totally forgot about Jacob and Marcelo's connection and the fact that they had played together. And that was weird watching it back, especially in the first episode when Jacob's like, and I'll like only play this game with Marcelo. And in my mind, I forgot about that friendship. And I feel like that may have been a mistake just because in that early game, I bonded with Marcelo, but in my mind, I didn't necessarily think, I was becoming a third for the Jacob Marcelo trio. In my mind, I was like, I'm making a great friendship with Marcelo. I'm bonding with Marcelo. This is a number that I can pull in. And I wrote down in my notes, on day one, that it was when I was writing down the first impressions of people, I wrote down next to Muna's name. I'm like, so excited that Muna's here. I need to play this game with her. However, I am going to need to get rid of Jacob Jones at some point so I can have her to myself. And in my mind, I was more focused on the Jacob Muna relationship than the Jacob Marcelo relationship. And clearly, watching the first episode back, that relationship was significantly stronger.
Yeah, I mean, we know it was stronger, but also the fact that he thought he could beat him, right? Was a big driving force in that conversation. Once you do size up everybody, I feel like your mind is one that leaps forward a little bit. Did you start thinking about who you would want to sit next to, just walking in, knowing?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. When I was looking at the people who were there, in my perfect world, I knew it would have been massively hard to do, but it would just my dream as a player. If I could have sat in the final two with Muna, I knew that would have been incredibly difficult for both of us to get there. And I knew it would have been a fight for me to actually win at that situation because Muna is so incredible. But that, in my mind, that just would have been such beautiful TV because I am clearly a big believer in strong, aggressive female players. And I think Muna just does such an incredible job of summing that up. And I think we're very similar in the way that we want to play out in front. So in my perfect world, I would have loved to sit by her. I think that would have been very difficult to win. I also would have been content to sit by Brendan in the end, just because I have a relationship with him being Briz's brother and Briz being one of my good friends. I felt as if Brendan was someone I could trust in the game. And it kind of felt like I could out-talk him if I got to the end with him.
I could see you having a good chance. I'm a big fan of Brendan, and we haven't seen him have to out-talk anybody yet. So far, mainly like people like Brendan, and he's like, "Come on!" It's like his general reaction to being called out. So we haven't really had to see him fight. That would have been an interesting fight for sure. I don't know his skills well enough to say if I'm underestimating him, but I know your skills well enough to say I wouldn't.
It's dangerous to sit with me in the end because I know how to talk.
Yeah, you're a good talker.
Going a step even back, one more little baby step. You're one of those that had a reputation from the minis. Do you think that the way, at least from my point of view, it looks like your mini reputation withheld while others were kind of forgotten about? Why do you think that is? Like, what do you think that played into?
I think part of it, because there's a lot of people from the mini community who have big reputations. I'm not sure what it was that made my reputation more scary than someone like Jacob's or Muna's. I think I just had less people who were willing to go to bat for me than people like that did. And for me, like, I knew if I got back in the game, I knew Spencer would go to bat for me, like, without a doubt, because I had gone to bat for him. And I thought I would have Brendan to work with as well. But, there's a lot of people who, looking back, I probably would have trusted someone like Jacob and Marcelo, and maybe that wouldn't have necessarily been the best play for me at that point. So I don't know what it is about my reputation. I think I'm not good at sitting back. And I think that's something that, like, Jacob, Muna, everyone wants to work with Muna because she's incredible. Like, I wanted to work with Muna. She's one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. Like, she just has that energy that people want to work with her, which is why she can kind of avoid the fact that she's got this amazing reputation. And then Jacob Jones has a tendency to play, I feel, a bit quieter than I do in the beginning. And I'm not going to be a quiet player. Like, I'm going to tell people, this is what I'm doing. This is what's happening. I'm going to call people out. Like, in the safety exile round, immediately called Jay West out and said, did you want me here to work with me, or did you want me here because you wanted me out? Like, I'm going to call people on their shit. And I think that's intimidating to some people because you either love that style of player where you respect it and be like, cool, like, that's someone who's going to be a straight shooter and tell me how it is, or you're scared by it and be like, that's a problem I need to get rid of now because I can't be snaky and lying to this person if they're going to continue to call me out in a big group. And I think Jacob Jones, who has this big reputation in the minis, is good at staying quieter than I am when faced with confrontation.
Yes, but in fairness, a lot of people are better than you are at staying quiet.
I know, it's so hard.
It is difficult. I will give you that.
Good TV, though.
I would rather give 2 episodes of great TV and great content and playing my heart out than be there for an entire season and have people question what I did. And I don't think anyone questions what kind of player I am or how I play this game. Some people may think I go too hard, too fast, which is fair, but I'm going to play with every moment I have. You're not going to see me sitting in the back seat and doing what other people tell me to do.
Do you feel like so far in the game, when you're watching it back, there's anybody that you underestimated because you have such a narrow view as their juror? Like, is there anybody that you're like, I did not even see that they were doing all this at this point?
Absolutely. There's a lot of people that it's been interesting watching it back. Like I said, especially for these episodes that I haven't, been participating, like with the battlebacks and like watching just the elimination ceremonies. I am very pleasantly surprised by the games that I'm seeing. Like, I am shocked to see how analytical Natalie is. It's beautiful to see. I'd love to see how her mind is working, because that's something that we see in her confessionals that didn't necessarily always show up in the elimination ceremonies. Same thing with Billy being the killer in the killer detective round. Like, blew my mind how well she thought through that round. And like, Billy was someone who I didn't necessarily see in the elimination ceremonies other than the one instance she had with Brent. So it was hard for me to gauge how her game was. But watching back, I am blown away by the amount of strategic moves that Billy has specifically made. So there's definitely people who have surprised me watching back and seeing what I don't get to see. Because like I said, we only see what happens at the elimination ceremonies and hear what other people say coming in. So it's exciting to see everything that they did.
Well, speaking of Natalie, what was your relationship with her like going into the battle match?
It was just kind of non-existent, to be honest. Like for me, sweet girl, we hadn't really formed any kind of game bond. In that round, it was Spencer, Jacob, Rachel, and Natalie who were up. And I felt like I couldn't lose Jacob at that point because I felt like he was a big target. He was a big threat. He was someone that I thought I could work with. I didn't want to lose Spencer at that point because I felt like he was someone who would be loyal to me. And then when it came down to Rachel and Natalie, I felt like I had a better chance to work with Rachel in the game than I did with Natalie. So we didn't really have much of a game relationship. So when that round happened and everyone wanted to vote Spencer, and I was like, well, that's not great for Katie's game. I pivoted and started scurrying and be like, you need somewhere to throw your vote. Natalie's a great place to throw it. She's super safe. Throw your vote there. So I think it was a good move for Natalie to pull me into that battle match because I do feel partially responsible. Yes, we'll say partially responsible for her getting voted out there because of how hard I worked to save Spencer in that situation. So I don't know. I have nothing but respect for her because I think it was a smart move and it stunk that I lost. It would have been great if I would have, but I think I don't know who would have been a smarter move for her to pull in there because even, and looking back, even if she would have tried to call Billy in, Billy was safe because she was the killer. So there was nothing I could really do. Like I was going in that round either way. And like I said, when I went, like I'm thrilled for Natalie. I'm happy that she was able to go back in and it's been great getting to watch her play and see her mind work because we're finally seeing her with some footing in this game, which is awesome because I think her growth as a player has been exceptional to watch. So I'm glad that she's keeping things spicy because that's what I want from people who take me out of the games. Like play like you took me out of the game and play with your heart, play the game that I wish I was playing.
I think that's fair.
And okay, so for me, something that I always like admire about you is like you are a player that you play cutthroat. You play the game and you play, and it's so hard in this social world that we're working in. You know, we always in Survivor they talk about the narrative of women being cutthroat compared to what would you say to a woman that wants to play that cutthroat game? Like you're someone that does it and you excel at it and you do it with a smile, but you do it and you're like, goodbye, you're going home now. like
I think it's just important. Yeah, it's just important to separate the game and real life. Like when I'm in the game, I'm in the game and I'll stab you in the back. I'll do what I have to do. But like when you exit the game, like these are friends you can make because these are people who are very similar to you. And I fully recognize it's hard to win a game as an aggressive woman player because often people are intimidated by that type of player. And it's hard sometimes to find people who want to work with that type of player. But I think I wouldn't play my game any differently. Like I don't want to sit back and let the game go around me and listen to what people have to say. I want to go out there and I want to be making the moves. I want to be able, if I get to the end of the game, I want to be able to sign my name by a move and be like, this was me. And I don't know. I fully believe everyone who wants to play that way, do it. Go out there and sometimes it won't work and you'll go home second, but other times you'll play aggressive and into it and focused and cutthroat and you get to the end and hopefully there's people who aren't bitter about how you played and they give you the win. Like I don't know. I love playing how I play and I wouldn't change it even if I probably should because it's harder to win this way.
It's worked for you. You are a winner. Like, you know, you won the mini. Like your game.
More people knew me, Tommy. Now they know how I play and they don't trust me anymore.
We need a disguise for you. I'm really good at disguises. You can be Thomas. You could be
Tomas. Tomothy.
Catherine will be in the next game.
Yeah, that would be very exciting. I would love to see you back for the next season and killing it in that way. But do you think that, speaking of being a woman winner, there was like perceptions, I think, in the mini world that you are a gal's gal, that you farm women's alliances only, etc. I remember during the lead up to Winners at War 2, that was the big rumor, was that you were Wonder Woman leading us all in a women's alliance. Do you feel like, and when Muna came in, you mentioned, you were like, man, they hate strong women in this game. Do you feel like that hurt that reputation specifically hurt your chances with some of the guys?
Not necessarily in this game, because looking at it, it felt like Muna was one of the only women who really wanted to play with me in that game. So I feel like this game, which was strange for me, skewed more to working with the men and working with people like Marcelo and Spencer and Jacob. And those felt more like people who were willing to work with me in this game, which was weird for me. But it was also a pivot, and it's something you have to do. So I don't necessarily think that reputation hurt me with the guys. I don't know if it hurt me with the girls, perhaps. I'm not sure, but it just felt like a lot of the women in the game had formed such tight bonds with each other and with other groups, which is beautiful and amazing, and I love it. But it didn't really feel like there was much space for me to work with them. And maybe it was due to the perception of some of the relationships I had with some of the men in the house that came across that way, that maybe I wasn't so much the girl's girl this season. But I don't know. It just,
they didn't get the memo. You said
you have to deal with the cards you're dealt. And in this particular game, the cards that were dealt seemed to be more men who would be willing to work with me. And I'm cool with sitting by a guy at the end because I feel very confident I can beat a man at the end. It's going to be much harder for me to sit by someone like Muna in the end and win. Like, I fully own that. I would love to sit with Muna in the end. But it's going to be a lot easier for me to win if I'm sitting next to like a Brendan or a Marcelo or a man. Like, I feel like I can easily be a man in the end. Put me next to a Muna. Give me a challenge.
insert man here.
Exactly.
Insert second place here, you may.
Exactly.
Oh, wait. Well, I'm glad we did get to see you kind of be pivot and be more flexible, because your mini game is so notorious, right? You run a loyal game, you run an aggressive game, you run a women focused game. So seeing you having to pivot was really interesting for us as game players. If you had gone back in for the battle match, the second one, that's where we start to really see things getting kind of we got a little bit of hint of where Jury stood based on what Muna did. Did you feel like those are the kind of moves you would have made as well?
If I said this shortly after Muna made those moves back in October in the game. I believe in that moment, what I would have done if I had gone back in and had the abilities that Muna would had, mine would have been differently, because in my mind, Spencer has no one. Spencer's going to be loyal to me. So I'm tethering Spencer to someone like Billy, because they're not going to vote out Billy. Like, that seemed very obvious to me, that Billy had a lot of friends in the house who would support her at that point. So I would have tethered Spencer to Billy in order to save him. And at that point, I was still a bitter Betty at Brent. So, because that marriage and necessity thing really irritated me. So I probably would have tethered Brent to probably Natalie, because the night before she'd kind of called out that hey, if Katie gets back in the game, she's going to work with Brendan. And I'm like, how you know that? That's a secret. So she had clocked that relationship, and I was like, that's not good. So in my mind, I probably would have tethered Brent and Natalie together. Would that have worked? I don't necessarily know. I probably would have made the mistake of tethering Jacob and Brendan together, thinking that would keep Brendan safe. But looking back at kind of the game dynamics now, those two probably would have been in more danger there than I would have thought. But I would have made slightly different moves, but potentially get the same outcome. Me and Jay West and Muna had all agreed we would try to send Brent to the jury as soon as possible, because we were so shocked by the game he was playing. He was just able to play a game that we could see was so backstabby and he had loyalty to no one, but they were just like letting him hang out and they were playing with him and we're like, what is happening? How is Brent doing this well? This is ridiculous. Send him in here. So my hope was the same outcome that Muna got, which was Brent in the jury. Do I think it would have happened? Not necessarily, looking at what the game dynamic was now that I've seen more than what I knew.
What was it like for you playing in this live format where you only have, maybe 15 minutes to talk and then you're just sequestered away and you just have your thoughts? You can yell at your handler, but you're really just in your own thoughts. How was that,
It's weird because you sit there after the rounds end and you just sit there with your thoughts and think about like, okay, this is the damage from the previous rounds that I need to clean up. This is what my next move is going to be when I start the next round. These are the conversations I need to have. And you're playing it in your head. So especially like for me in between, before we got to the point where it was after I had voted Natalie out of the game, but before we found out who was eliminated and before I was called into the battle match, I was sitting there in my head and running it through my head of, okay, what am I going to say if my vote is exposed? What am I going to do? Which way am I going to pivot? Because that's what I did the previous night before as well with the Josh one. I had planned in my head of like, this is the path I'm going to take first. And if that doesn't work, we'll pivot and try a different path. So your mind just sits there and you run. And I finished like 2 books because there was like nothing to do other than sit there and be in your thoughts and read. So it was weird. It's hard to say because I didn't get to do it for too long, but once we got in the jury and we could talk and hang out, it was great. Became good old pals, me and Jay West. We had a blast.
So you mentioned the marriage of necessity thing, and we saw how you felt about that in your confessionals. Looking back on it, do you still think that was just like balls out crazy for him to suggest?
I think I recognize that, yes, I got him put into exile. Do I think there was a better way to approach me specifically in that situation? Yes, because I was blindsided when Brent said my name. Like I was shocked because he had before in the round grabbed our hands and been like, no matter what, if you're in exile, I would never vote for you. And I think maybe if he would have told me beforehand he was going to throw it on me, that may not have been good for him because then I may have pivoted and been like, well, Josh, the only reason Brent voted for me is because yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. So it's hard because I see why he did what he did. Coming to me and saying, hey, it's a marriage of necessity. The original argument about it was good when he was like, if you go, you can pull me in, no holds barred. But the second he pivoted, he's like, and if I go, even if you had nothing to do with it, I'll pull you in. And I'm like, whoa. Hold on, Brent. I feel like you have a lot more enemies in this house than I do. And I feel like it's a lot more likely they vote you out instead of me. So I'm not sure if this is a good deal on my end. And that just got me like, it got me all riled up. And if I had a whole plan in my head, if I would have gotten back in that battle back and had that LOS, my goal would have been like, get Brent out. And even if that's like not the twist where it's like the tether twist, but like if it was the option where you could still pull someone in, my goal was get Brent out. And I would have made it very clear I was the one taking Brent out because I know Brent would have been like, you know what, Katie, you're going to come in the battle match with me. And I would have walked up and been like, you know what, Brent, you said this was a marriage of necessity. It's time for a divorce. Pick someone else for the battle match. And I would have been bitter and I would have thrown his game in the trash because I hold grudges. So probably wouldn't have been good for me.
Did you get the divorce after the game?
No, we didn't. We're still married by necessity because we were stuck in jury together. But Brent's lovely. We had a grand time getting to know each other in the jury.
I heard that. I heard y'all were the podcasters for the rest of the season, that y'all were there giving commentary for the eliminations.
That sounds accurate. I don't know. We're probably just debriefing game and guessing. Because it's always funny because we have like guesses of what could possibly happen when we show up to the elimination because we start to learn about, luxury row and things like that. Eventually we start to kind of know what's going on. So we start to piece together who we think has powers and this kind of thing. And write it in our head of like, okay, but if this person goes, then they're going to walk up and play their power. But then what if they do this and then this happens? And we're coming up with all sorts of crazy theories in our heads of what could happen. Because your mind goes crazy and you've got nothing to do except talk game and hang out in the jury.
Nerd out, basically.
Exactly.
I gotta ask though, if you could describe your game as any crockpot recipe, how would you sum up your game?
Any
Like a little
crockpot recipe.
Yeah. Like picture this, it's just like sitting on my shelf, crockpot there, it's bubbling over. Boop, 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 boop.
Maybe like a breakfast casserole in the crock pot where it's in there, it's kind of unexpected, but once you open it, because you're like, a breakfast casserole in a crock pot, what? But then when you open it, you're like, no, this is pretty much what we expected, where it's spicy and it's tasty, but you want it, you're surprised that it's happening, that it's in a crock pot, but it's what you expect. And it's fun along the way.
I like that. That's a good, like Family Feud. Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah, it's very Family Feud. Well, I know that it was a good way to start. Like, it just started so hardcore, the whole game. And the 2 days of Katie fighting was just like, what is happening?
I had to start it big. I was like, you know what? And I want to take part of the responsibility of sparking the fuse of this being such a chaotic season, because I, from the very first elimination ceremony, was like, let's get spicy. Let's do it.
By the way, I don't know if you saw this week's Podquester, but Jalen did wear her My Dick Is Not Tiny sweatshirt for... Will you explain that context to everyone? I don't think that everyone understands.
It's about that big dick energy, you know? Like, my dick isn't tiny. And I was very glad I wore that sweatshirt for that particular episode, because I feel like I showed my big dick energy in that situation where I stood up and said, you know what? You're going to come for me. Fucking do it. I'm going to fight. I'm going to point the arrow at other places, and I'm going to yell until I get my way. So just, my dick isn't tiny. I'm always going to have that big dick energy, even if I'm only there for 2 rounds.
Now, when you're in the jury house, you're moving forward and you are looking for a winner out of all of these players. Are you still rooting for people, or are you trying to keep open, or are there people that you're like, that one's going to have to work hard for my vote?
No, there's definitely people who I'm looking at saying, you're going to have to show up if you want to get my vote, because what Luna was saying was very accurate when, at that point, those of us in the jury didn't really feel like anyone had a move to hang their hat on, because none of them got us out of the game. The people who got us out of the game, someone like Josh, someone like Natalie, someone like Spencer, the people who got us out of the games are the only people in my mind who had made moves at that point. The rest of your moves don't matter. Cool, you voted for Spencer, everyone voted for Spencer. How are you going to sign your name by that move at the end? So there was definitely people that I was like, I need to see something from you, because right now it doesn't seem like you have anything that's impressive, because the people you're voting out aren't leaving. All you're doing is making us a casualty of your game. And like, we were casualties of our own game. And it's, I don't know, I need to see more from people, because like I said, I want to reward the win to someone who played a good game. I don't want to give the game to someone who just hung out the whole time. Like, I want people to show what we came here for, because we're all gamers. We all want to win. So show me what you're willing to do to get the win.
Yeah, the show is more about an experience than anything.
Yes, exactly.
Do you think that like the battle match is like more like has more weight because it's like you can see an outcome? You can see one person does something, get someone, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, do you think that has like more power than like managing a twist under the cover? You know what I mean?
The battle matches are tricky, because I feel like we're seeing something really weird by the fact that it's the people getting voted out are the ones who are winning the battle. I feel like that's not something you would usually expect to happen. It's just a weird coincidence, I guess, that that's happening this season. And I don't know. The twists are so important, and that's what start Sequester as it is. But for me, when I look into it, the battle matches are almost like a form of like purgatory, where you're like, you're not out of the game, you're down, but you're not out. Like you need to show up and be like, yo, I can throw ping pong balls better than Katie. You can vote me out because you think I'm an easy vote, but boom, look at me go in this battle match. You can't stop me. And it's a nice way with the battle matches to allow people who are on the bottom to have a chance to succeed in the game. Like someone like, if you see people like Josh and Natalie going out just because they're not forming those immediate strategic bonds in a group, then we get shows like Big Brother where it's just one big core alliance running the whole thing. And the good thing about the battle matches is the fact that it is like a pendulum where it's, you know, you can vote out someone who's disconnected, but you best hope they don't drag one of your allies into the battle match and win, which we keep seeing happening. So it's tough.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. We talked about the marriage of necessity. We briefly mentioned the other Brent speech, the discussion of the glow that is Brent touching us all with its light.
It was just as awkward and hysterical in person as it was on, especially like the fist pump for Spencer. His hand was out there, just like it was just that awkwardly long. Like it was so funny. It was so funny to watch happen. Watching the elimination.
He hit that man like 3 times. I was like,
so good. And then Brent goes up and gives his speech and we're losing it. We're like, this is great. We're at a soap opera today. This is a good episode of elimination.
But it's good to think about, how did we get to Sequester? How did you get to Sequester?
I found Sequester just because I am a Big Brother Survivor super fan. And when they did the Big Brother US versus Big Brother Canada mini game, I was like, well, that seems interesting. I should watch that. So I watched that, and then they ended up doing the Survivor one soon after. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. And after the Survivor one, I watched like the influencer one, I think, and then like the RHAP one, and like ones that I kind of recognized people, and then slowly started being like, you know what? Let's watch these ones with normal people, and really enjoyed them. And it was the weekend actually that Brendan won his mini, when we had like 4 minis in a row. It was like the first time we had 4 minis in a week. That's crazy. This is amazing. 4 whole minis. This is gonna be great. And that week it was like just a fun week of minis. And I was like, you know what? Like I might as well apply and see what happens. Why not? We'll see where it takes me. Just because like I've applied for Survivor and Big Brother and I love it. And that's a dream for me one day, is to get on Survivor. We'll see. But I ended up getting into Sequester, and it was neat getting the chance to test my strategic mind, because I always felt like I'd be good at these games. So it was cool to see I was right, that I could be good at these games.
You were like, aha, I knew it.
Jordan Staff was actually telling me, he's like, after your first mini, like I called Audrey right away and was like, this is the girl we've been looking for season 4. And I kind of think that's why I ended up playing in the Heroes versus Villains All-Stars game, even though I was already on the leaderboard, is because they kind of wanted, I think, like another trial run of like, cool, was it a fluke that she did well? Or like, is she this kind of aggressive player all the time? Because it was soon after that I got the call to go be on season 4.
I do think that you are somebody who made a huge splash on this Sequester scene. We saw you on Podquester. We were like, let's get that girl on Podquester as soon as possible. And then quickly moved you to correspondent and chief correspondent. I mean, you are somebody who makes an impact. And now you are also the leader of, I'm sorry, what is it? Is it Alpha Sequester?
Alpha Gamma Sequester.
Alpha Gamma Sequester.
Yeah.
You have brought in an entire sorority.
We have a beautiful group of 4 of us. It's lovely. We love to see it.
I've nominated myself a part of it. Like I'm just like the guy that sits outside of the house and like
you're the houseboy.
Yeah. Yes.
Make us our crock pot recipes. It's great.
Yeah, exactly.
That's terrible. I want a pool boy who makes me margaritas, and then we ended up with Tommy making us like hot soup. Like, this is not what I requested. I did not want clam chowder. I wanted a margarita. But and certainly Tommy and Speedos is a whole situation now. Tommy, for a moment. I thought you were going to go get them.
Yeah, we'll be back.
BRB. No, but you definitely have made an impact on Sequester, and you made an impact on this game. You really did. Like reversing that battle match was something we hadn't seen before, and you were steaming mad. We could feel your energy.
I was shooketh. I did not see that coming. I didn't. I was so blindsided by that. That's why I was so angry, because I was like, and I knew everyone sitting over there on the little haystacks was just as like, what the hell? Just because in my mind, I'm like, Brent, you didn't just burn a relationship with me here. I'm like, you promised Luna, you promised Jacob, you promised Brennan, you promised all of these people in front of each other. If you're in exile, I would never vote for you. And you just showed them all that you lied. And it was just, was such a blindside. I did not see it coming. And that's why I was so mad. And usually I'm pretty good at like expecting when things were going to happen, and I try to like control my face, like if I know what's going to happen, because I don't want to get that gift. But they got one of me all pissed off because I was so shocked.
And there was like a slight smirk to it, because it was almost like you wait till I come back in. Like
exactly.
It's really stressful to watch this game. I can't imagine how it must feel to be like 2 feet away from it and I know you could impact it if you just like walked upstairs. That's got to be so hard. But I think that, we're going to still see plenty of you, especially when we get closer to the final 2. I'm sure we'll have lots of thoughts from the jury on what they'll be seeing and thinking.
And I'm still going to walk out to every elimination ceremony looking good as hell. So
love it. Drop this album.
Doesn't mean I won't look great.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on the album. Y'all looked so freaking fire.
As soon as they took that picture, me, Jay West, and we were like, okay, cool. When can you send that to us? They're like, not until after the episode airs. We're like, but we need it now.
Y'all looked so good. And then with Muna, too. Y'all were just like, bam. Bam.
Oh, so good. So good.
Looks. But do you have anything you want to share before we wrap up?
No, not that I can think of. I mean, it was a great experience. I'm happy I went. I wish it would have gone a bit longer, just because I feel like there's still so much of my story to tell. And, everyone kind of sees me as like this villain ice queen when I play these games. And I was really excited to show another side of me. And I think, there were moments that I was able to show that other side of me. And I think part of that's why me and Marcelo bonded right away, is because we got to know each other like as actual humans rather than players. And he had told me like right after we had like a conversation about life and who we are and what made us the people that we are. He just was like, I never thought I would like you, but you are one of my favorite humans. And I'm so thankful that I got to know you and know who you are. And I'm bummed I didn't get to show more of that and show who I am as a person outside of being this ruthless, villainous player. But you know what? I'm still going to play an evil game. And if you're lucky enough to know me on the outside, you'll know that I'm not an evil person.
She's not evil. She just plays evil on TV.
Exactly. That's just my persona on TV.
Well, we love to see it. Any last questions, Tommy, before we head out?
Nope.
Okay.
The last one I had was about crock pots. I can't go any higher than that. That was the peak Tommy. So
gotta get your instant pot, Tommy.
I'm trying. It's on my list.
I gave him the Amazon gift card for it. That's all I can do.
The GoFundMe. Everyone out there, GoFundMe Instapot Tommy.
Your Venmo, Tommy. They'll send you candy.
Oh,
that's true. I did also send Katie candy money. It's under $6. I was like, get you some Twizzlers. You go, girl. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Katie. And we're looking forward to seeing you continue on throughout the rest of the season. And I'm sure on many other reality shows.
Thank you, friends. Love you.
but I do love a nacho too, which is the nachos inside the you put nachos inside of a taco and then you wrap it all up and then it's like it's everything you want.
That's pretty
and
fancy.
tortilla.
I've never heard of this. I've never.
Did you ever watch Kim Possible? It was a Kim Possible. They made it.
Oh, you know what? I didn't, but I do love TV show foods. Spaghetti tacos from iCarly. Those are good.
Yes.